We all are going through something. And the truth of the matter is, one may ask, how is it possible to handle everything that's happening in the world? The speed, the quantity of the information that is thrown in our direction, the demands that society pile up on every individual, the peer pressure. What actually can keep us alive? To answer this question, I'll give you the analogy of a house. A house is built with cement. But in order to hold up everything in the house, you need wood. You need 2x4s, and they need to be solid. They're heavy. They need to be strong in order to be able to hold the house. Sometimes you could have a whole house that looks wonderful and looks strong, and from one moment to the next, God forbid, the whole house just crumbles down like a sandcastle. Why? Because you have millions of termites which install themselves and make themselves comfortable and start eating up through the essence, through the core of all this wood. Suddenly, something you had difficulty to lift with your 2 hands, you can lift with 2 fingers, because everything inside is completely hollow. So, what holds the house is actually the fact that the wood is full, it's strong, and it's holding together. From the outside, it could look very strong, but if in the inside it's empty, empty is empty. And you cannot run on empty. If you look at today's generation, the challenges that we all experience, we are consistently being solicited, pushed in every possible direction. And if you run on empty, at a certain point you feel empty and you become hollow and empty, and you look for things that are going to fulfill your life. In general, the way we try to fulfill life is a lot like shooting from the hip. What are my needs now? What is my craving now? I need it now. And anything that comes close to us, that's accessible in that moment, we seem to have lost the self-control to overcome the temptations. The temptation of looking and looking again. The temptation of hearing and listening to nonsense. The temptation of speaking about others and nonsense. The temptation of experiencing and trying to make our senses delect in something which is not true pleasure. It's interesting because when the Torah, the Talmud specifically, speaks about the relationship between a husband and wife, the Talmud says אינו דומה מי שיש לו פת בסלו למי שאין לו פת בסלו. You cannot compare somebody that has bread in his basket and somebody that doesn't have bread in his basket. Meaning a person that might be running on empty but knows that at home he has bread, even though he's hungry, he's not going to be tempted so easily to eat nonsense. He would rather have a good, hearty meal. But a person that doesn't know when his next meal is going to come, he doesn't have bread in his basket, he's going to grab anything that is at his reach. Sometimes a person will eat a hearty breakfast and can stand till 3 o'clock in the afternoon and overcome his temptation to eat junk food or have the sugar rush followed by the low sugar and that desire to consistently eat. Today, what we need in our world, and what even young people are talking to me about, is, Rabbi, I don't want to be a tape recorder that just records a lesson, and in order to pass my grades and to go to the next class, to be just a good tape recorder that could play back the information. I want to understand, how does that touch my life? How does that bring value and meaning to my life? People today, more than ever, are looking for something deep. They're sick and tired of all this superficiality. They want bread. The Torah is compared to bread. But even in the Torah itself, it's not enough to have bread. Bread can be dry. Bread can be unpleasant to eat sometimes. Bread, God forbid, can feel stale. So what we need is to be able to dip our bread into some oil, to bring it that we should be able to take pleasure in that bread. The true bread, the bread of Torah, the bread of meaning, the deeper understanding, the understanding of the soul, is what people are looking for. And therefore today, more than ever, you have all these different services that help you be more mindful and learn to meditate and contemplate on greater things in your life in order to bring meaning to your life. Because people want bread. People are sick and tired of all that abundance of a bunch of nothingness. And another thing is happening, and another thing is happening. You don't have time to catch up on one information that already another information is thrown to your face. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe said in the olden days there were less books of Torah and Hasidic philosophy that were available. But what was available was absorbed fully, retained, integrated in one's life. Today, the information is tremendous. But it doesn't mean I'm going to change. So if you ask me how do we handle this type of speed, this type of world, this type of being pulled in every direction? How do we maintain ourselves with sanity? Without the new syndromes, the new sicknesses of the mind, the depressing desire of being consistently busy with something. The only way we can do it is to sit down, shut our phones, shut our computers, shut our thoughts, and connect our minds to a deeper understanding, God's understanding. It's interesting because when Maimonides speaks about the Geulah, he speaks about the redemption. He finishes his magnum opus, Yada Hazakah, with the laws of Mashiach, and he says, and on this day, Umale'ah ha'aretz, De'a et Hashem, Kamaim layam echasim. The earth will be filled with the knowledge of God just like the water fills the seabed. Why this analogy? First of all, we see we are in this time because knowledge is available to all. But there's something deeper here. Earth, we all come from earth. But it's not something that's obvious to the eye. We all have the element of fire inside of us, the warmth of the body. But it's not something which is obvious to the eye. What is obvious to the eye is that whatever we see on earth as separate bunch of things, there is under the water. There's a whole kingdom under the water of fish, corals, of life, of plants, everything. But it's all one with the water. There's no separation. You can recognize how everything that's in the water is united with the water. What will happen when Mashiach comes is we will see how we're all united with the knowledge of God. How everything recognizes its source. Today, the cry of the generation, believe it or not, in a time where unfortunately the third cause of death amongst teenagers is suicide. What we need is that deeper knowledge. We need to understand, why did God create the world? What is my mission? Where am I going? What am I contributing to the world? We need to be proactive and become God's partners in a way that we are one with the water, one with the knowledge, one with God. We need to understand. We need to become curious again. We're so curious to know how and where and how it happened and so on and so forth. All the details, all the channels, the same information recycled in 5 different channels with images, with voice, with sound, with effect. We need to know it all. At the end, we have nothing. The wood that is holding up our home is hollow. We need to start demanding from ourselves. And the only way, and the only one that demands from us is God. To set our own rules and say, I'm a freebie, I do whatever I want. In this world, you can get very lost very fast. Whatever area of life you decide to be involved in Torah, you will find yourself. You will find a mirror that tells you this is your vocation. The Torah is not there to tell you, don't be you. We don't want you. We want some special holy beings. No. The Torah wants you the way you are. But wants you to recognize that you have a deeper self. And that deeper self can transform the world. And to transform the world, you need to transform yourself. So, the answer to how to transform the world, how to live a life with a right foundation, relies in every single one of us. We need to expand our knowledge. expand our knowledge not in quantity but in quality. Not only in quality materially, but in quality spiritually. We need to understand what we are doing. We need to be people that act. But we need to understand that every action has a very powerful, potent meaning and can transform the whole universe. Maimonides says that everyone has to see the world in a perfect state of balance between the good and the bad. One little action can tip the balance and make the good take over the bad. We have that power. Unfortunately, so many things are happening, we don't give the time for ourselves to take the time to weigh our actions. There's an avodah, there's a service, which is a service of Kriyat Shema Shalamita, the service of introspection and meditation and contemplation of teshuvah, of return to one's source and one's true identity, which happens every night before you go to sleep. That's the way we go to sleep. Not watching a TV, not watching the news, not getting more of that blue light coming out of our cell phone, but rather getting more of that holy light coming out of our souls, connecting to our minds and emotions, transforming them, taking upon ourselves the yoke of God and saying, God, I accept that you're my God. Biyadchav ki doruchi, I give over my soul to you. And to wake up in the morning and the first thing you say is, where's my coffee? The first thing you say is, Modeh ani lefanecha. God, thanks I offer before you. Eternal King. You start your day, you finish your day in the right way. Then there is hope for your day to be a meaningful day. But if I'm the orchestrator of my day in the morning, and I believe that I know it all, and I could just continue being this machine, it's possible that meanwhile the termites are just eating through me. And all that I accumulate, instead of being a solidifier that strengthens, it actually becomes something that makes my whole life hollow. I would like to ask that every single one of us understand this, and that even if we're hollow, it's okay. We could be hollow, and the hollow can be used as a channel to be able to give a message to somebody else. If we decide to become emissaries ourselves of Hashem, which are there to share the knowledge, to inspire, to give a good word, a word of encouragement, a soul world, a word of godliness, a spiritual world, a meaningful word that is going to transform somebody else, make somebody happy, change their perspective, reframe the way they look at the world, then our hollowness starts filling up with holiness. And at that moment, our foundations can be rebuilt again. So take 5 minutes a day. Go on Chabad.org or whatever website you like. Take the time to study something every day. Try to integrate it in your life. Go to sleep giving over your soul to God, waking up, thanking Him for giving it back to you. And decide, take a firm resolve for the next few days, at least till Rosh Hashanah, to at least be God's messenger. To be God's messenger, you need to learn and study and transform lives by transforming your own.